I'd like to talk about the study that I made together with two of my colleagues on COVID-19 seen through the eyes of the pharmacy interns. My two colleagues are Sissel Christiansen and Sonja Paltoft. They are pharmacists just like I am, but they work in community pharmacy and they take part in the steering group of the pharmacy internship where they set up studies and do evaluations and stuff like that together with me and other people, and I'm heading the pharmacy internship. We have no disclosures to this presentation. And before I move on, I would like to also thank the 47 pharmacy interns who actually collected data for this study. Um, the agenda for my presentation would be a traditional one with a bit of setting background description, the research question, a bit about methods and analysis, but most of my presentation will be on the results from the study that we did and a short conclusion. But first, a bit of setting. We have about 160, 170 pharmacy students doing their internship each year at Copenhagen University. They do it in one of the more than 100 pharmacies in Denmark, hospital pharmacists or community pharmacists. What the students do during their internship, well, they do different stuff, of course, but they mostly do daily work, but they also do some have some time for their own, where they, for instance, can do research, which some of our students actually did this spring. Um, it might be nice to know what um, um, the pharmacy internship learning objectives are. And of course, I can't go through this in detail, but as you can see, the students need to show a lot of knowledge and skills on different issues during their oral and written exam. And they also need to show the competency development, for instance, in terms of how they develop their reflective abilities and how they demonstrate socialization in the pharmacy. So those are the learning goals for the students, and they started on February 1st. And then after a few weeks, COVID-19 hit Denmark and really changed the pharmacy internship strongly for all our students. There was a lot of stuff they couldn't do. They couldn't do the external visits, external placements, and they couldn't do the interdisciplinary cooperation, but they could work in the pharmacy and they were strongly needed there. What else could they do? Well, they could do some research. And actually, in Copenhagen University, we have for the last 22 years been doing research together with the internship pharmacists and the interns when they are there in the pharmacy. So we thought, Sissel, Sonja, and I, why not make use of the students' written exam reports on COVID-19 for a research study on what happened in the pharmacies in the beginning of this pandemic? So that's what we did. And we made a research question, which is what are internship students' experiences with and reflections on COVID-19 when it comes to, and then a list of different issues, which you'll see in the results section. I have to say that the students could select him or herself what they wanted to focus on in relation to COVID-19, as long as it made sense in relation to the learning objectives that I just showed you on the former slide. It was voluntary for the students to participate in the study. 47 out of the 128 internship students allowed us to make use of 64 of their written exam reports on COVID-19. So about 200 pages we had. We did a qualitative and content analysis. And at the moment, we do have an analysis document, which is like 20 pages long. And of course, I can't go through that, but we have selected some results for you, which we think are, well, which we presume are of interest for an international audience. First of all, something about organization and leadership. Many students wrote that they saw leaders who changed from value-based leadership to situational leadership, crisis leadership, and distance management during the crisis. And as one of the students said, in handling the corona crisis challenges, we're all beginners. For a while, we all We're all at development stage 1. Maybe therefore we desperately need a leader who leads the way. And a lot of students actually experience leaders who led the way. Um, a lot of the pharmacy leaders gave motivational enhancing initiatives, and the students experienced that. They got candy, they got appreciative words, they got pat on the back, they got small presents, and they experienced much more virtual meetings, not just the internship students, but of course the entire staff. Um, the students also reported that the traditional rotation between departments was cancelled or reduced during the pandemic. And the students also reported about a number of sick days if among pharmacy staff was reduced. Um, Many pharmacy leaders said, stay calm, act professionally. Then something about the financial stuff, the turnover, the finances. Well, at first it was very busy at all pharmacies, and um, then we saw large geographical differences in customer flow depending on the location, whether it was a street pharmacy, a center pharmacy, or a branch pharmacy. Online pharmacies saw tenfold sales, and one of the interns wrote that at our pharmacy web shop, the number of daily orders increased from 30 to 100. Most pharmacies, the students wrote, had increased costs in relation to limiting the risk of infection. Stickers for the floor, rubbing alcohol, plexiglass screens, extra phones for to-do orders when people call in, order their medicine, and the medicine is handed out in the parking lot. A lot of pharmacies also saw a lot of hoarding, which it resulted actually in increased prices and restricted sale of face masks. Do you have more liquid gold? Meaning rubbing alcohol, one of the customers said. Pharmacies experienced loss of revenue due to initial reduced sale of free trade goods, and there was also a lot of non-performance of different cognitive services, inhalation check, new medicine conversation, reviews, and that kind of things. Um, Decrease in medication dialogue led to an economic loss for the pharmacy, one of the students wrote. However, though, the loss of health promotion for customers is the most serious issue. As to customer behavior and attitudes, the customer divided themselves into two groups. Either a group of very understanding, very relaxed customers, maybe even too relaxed because they didn't always pay attention to the restrictions. And then the other group of patients, the larger group, scared patients, unhappy, frightened patients, customers. And one of the students wrote, you could almost feel the panic in the air. And a panic customer is not easy to communicate with. The customer's attitude changed a lot during especially the beginning of the pandemic. There was a lot of increased purchase of hand sale, a lot of hoarding, a lot of telephone dialogues. Drive-in pharmacy was used in many places, and also to-go sale. And a lot of medicines was being shipped out of the pharmacy too. Then communication, which was strongly influenced by this pandemic, um, especially the plexiglass glass screens, which was set up in many Danish pharmacies, and the physical distance between staff and customers affected the counter dialogue strongly and negatively. But also the fact that many customer patients would typically send their relatives to pick up the medicines because they were scared to go out, and that made it difficult to have a dialogue with this person who was to pick up medicines. Um, Actually, a lot of the students wrote that there was not enough medication-related counseling at the counter. They talked more about corona guidelines instead of talking about medicines. And the students experienced several dilemmas in relation to this plexiglass screen communication ethics and stuff like that. And one of the students actually wrote it nicely this way, that a major ethical dilemma has been to prioritize between customers' risk of infection and discretion. The students also wrote about their ideas for